Welcome everyone to the third session of the Middle East Sugar and Calorie Reduction Knowledge Building Program. This 6-session series is hosted in collaboration between Ministry of Industry and Advanced Technology, UAE, and UAE Food and Beverage Manufacturers Business Group, powered by Tate and Lyle. Today's session, Overcoming Cost Challenges, will be led by Tate and Lyle speakers, Ms. Ariane Jouette, Technical Specialist and Support at Tate and Lyle, and Ms. Diane L, Regional Marketing Manager from Tate & Lyle. Before we continue, I would like to remind you to kindly keep your mics on mute, but continue to use the chat feature of Zoom to pose any questions you may have during the session. They will be picked up towards the end. Also, the final session of the 6th series will be a practical session taking place live and in person, and it is important to attend all of the virtual sessions to be eligible to attend. Ms. Diane, over to you now.
Thank you, Malky. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be speaking to you this morning as part of our sugar and calorie reduction program. Please excuse me, I do have a bit of flu. Today's session will focus, as Malky mentioned, on overcoming cost challenges. If we can go to the next slide. So as we begin, we're going to gain a better understanding of the consumer and the market landscape and discuss then formulation challenges. The next slide, please. When it comes to reducing sugar and calories, it's very much like a balancing act to ensure that consumer needs are answered, regulatory pressures from sugar taxes are considered within cost and formulation, and formulation challenges addressed in order to reduce sugar while still delivering to the consumer on taste, texture, and affordability. At Tate & Lyle, we stay very close to the consumer, and today we want to delve into how the consumer in the Middle East is dealing with inflation. They are certainly starting to feel the pinch and becoming more and more price sensitive. More than ever before, consumers are paying very close attention to how their money is spent. Across all different emphases, we can see that at least 84% of Saudi consumers are agreeing that they stick to a budget, and they're always seeking affordable products and services. Next slide, please. With consumers being more price sensitive, brand loyalty is becoming more and more of a challenge. This is further fueled by the fact that consumers are now able to shop via multi-channels and they have so much more choice. So brands will therefore need to work a lot harder to ensure they have stronger points of differentiation in order to be stand out and to be chosen. So with brand loyalty being challenged, this should in theory mean that the private label brands will perform better, but Saudi consumers still show preferences to well-known brands as they feel more secure buying these. They feel that these will provide a better quality. Next slide, please. Budget-friendly products will continue to grow as consumers are more and more cost-conscious, and therefore brands cannot neglect the segment as a prime opportunity right now across categories. So with consumers being price sensitive to price increases within FMCGs, this has made them more reactive, which means that they're willing to stock up when products are at a lower price. They are willing to trade down in certain categories, and they're also willing to switch retailers when necessary. Consumers are now more informed about prices since they have access to apps and websites which actually do the price comparisons for them. This again means that brands have to work so much harder to be strongly differentiated and therefore chosen. Next slide, please, Ariane. The other consideration mentioned in our Balancing Act is that in an effort to curb diabetes and obesity, the governments have stepped in now and they've introduced sugar taxes in various markets. In Saudi Arabia and the UAE, in December 2019, sugar taxes were launched with a strategy of 50% on all sweetened beverages and 100% on energy drinks. There are, however, exemptions within the dairy segment when it comes to products which are heavily milk-based and contain at least 75% milk. Next slide, please, Ariane. So how effective have sugar taxes been in other markets where they were introduced much earlier? In the UK, we can see that taxes were introduced in April 2018, and since then, the impact has been significant on the industry. Mintel data suggests that at least 70% of launches of carbonated soft drink beverages now contain sugar levels that are less than the taxable amount. So manufacturers are really being smart, lowering their sugar levels. The average sugar levels listed on nutritional panels have decreased, and product launches with claims relating to sugar continue to grow. I hope you found this interesting, and now that you have a bit more background into the consumer and the government taxes, it's time for the final part of our Balancing Act with Ariane, which is the formulation challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. So thank you very much, Diane, for this rich and enlightened first part. It really helps to understand market and people expectations. So we open now a second chapter on how to fulfill those expectations on sugar reduction while maintaining affordability on product price. So sugar reduction objective is strongly connected to multiple key challenges. On consumer point of view, if we start from the right, the sugar content is linked with declared nutritional values in back of pack side, and those values are associated with potential front of pack health claim and labels induce conscious and unconscious understanding on healthy positioning of a food product for final consumers. Sugar also plays a role in product shelf life stability. Other technical aspects are influenced by sugar content, such as textural properties and mouthfeel, but also overall flavor profile, as we explained in the second session actually of this program. So today we will focus on the cost impact of the sweetening system and the calculated cost in use within the product recipe. Food industry is facing the high challenge of reducing sugar besides achieving a great taste and also the right cost in use of food product. To meet this formulation challenge, several levers are actually accessible based on regulation context, of course. Sweeteners on the left, top left, are first obvious assets to reach expected sweetness. They are commonly used to replace calorific sugars, but actually they can also influence the sensory profile and flavor, but also on texture perception, such as body and mouthfeel attributes. Flavor modulator on top right, which are also called flavor with modifying properties, are welcome to support sugar reduction reformulation by rebalancing the overall profile impacted, but also manage potential sensory deviation or off notes from sweeteners or bulking agent. Mentioning bulking agent, actually fibers are really champions because they present multiple assets. Fibers are really perfect choice to rebuild the mouthfeel for significant sugar and calories reduction, while maintaining the taste and mouthfeel expectation. And additionally, they can help to even reach nutritional claims through fiber fortification. As sugar has a significant impact on textures, it might also be relevant to involve stabilizers and functional system. Those solutions can be customized to ensure expected mouthfeel, the taste, and overall eat experience for final consumers. So we just had an overview on multiple food ingredients that can help to achieve a great taste experience through sugar reduction. But decreasing sugar and replacing by other ingredients may have an impact on formula costs. And context is tight on price expectation by final consumer, as Diane explained in first part, and you also observe on your market. Consequently, cost is another key challenge that food industry is facing. Overcoming these cost challenges requires a strategical and wise approach to save development time and investment. So we propose you 3 solid strategies to fulfill expectations. At first, there's a way to use and dose sweeteners in an optimized way. Secondly, it is wise to play on technical synergy of specific sweeteners and their dosage. Then a complementary approach is to carefully choose and adapt the flavor solutions. So when we look at sweeteners as product solution, as alternative solutions, for sweetening in food products, research literature in food and sensory science illustrate that high potency sweetener shows really specific taste behavior compared to sucrose reference. Each sweetener presents specific functionality like taste profile, stability, sweetness potency, and it is really interesting to use it on an optimized way. Let's look at a real case example in a beverage matrix. This industrial customer targeted to drastically reduce sugar in their orange juice-based refresher. The full sugar recipe included 9.85% of added sugar, and then reformulation strategies have been discussed with the customer, and they shared that they wish to use only stevia as a natural sweetener. Thanks to application expertise, few formulation prototypes were proposed for evaluation by customer, and their team selected the second alternative solution as their best recipe. It was containing at the end only 5.9% of added sugar and the best performing stevia extract for this specific beverage and this context. So the new recipe that will be selected for further launch allows to reduce sugar content by 41% and even reduce the cost of the recipe by 15%, which is quite interesting if you agree. Another real case example from Middle East market. So initially this product was proposed with 9.85% added sugar. And actually it's quite in line with what consumer expected with the rich and sweet taste of a called cocktail nectar flavor beverage. So in order to improve the nutritional impact and manage the recipe price, an alternative recipe was proposed to customer. And actually this recipe pleased their team. It was containing only 7.25% of added sugar plus a selected stevia extract. So in this new recipe, it's allowed to reach a 26% sugar reduction and a significant 14% cost reduction. So here you have seen 2 real case examples showing that stevia sweetener allow to formulate healthier beverages with also cost saving while ensuring a really good taste performance. Let's move to the second strategy approach. Sweeteners, as we've seen, impact multiple sensory dimensions. One performing strategy is to carefully choose appropriate sweeteners, especially as some of them actually influence each other. synergy between sweeteners is a properties that applies to synthetic sweeteners, such as aspartame and SS2FMK, but also to natural stevia sweeteners. This synergic function can be leveraged to deliver higher sweetness intensity than expected in food products. So let's dig a little bit more into this. So what's this synergy functionality for sweeteners? This phenomenon has been observed when blending, for example, sucrose and fructose, as it is illustrated in the right figure here, but also aspartame and SS2FMK, which is quite a traditional blend that you can find on market product, but also with other sugars and sweeteners such as stevia and sucrose. It induces that if you propose this blend to a sensory panel, they will rate a higher sweetness intensity than the theoretical calculation if you would do the sum of the sweetness intensity for each sweetener based on their dosage. There is also actually a qualitative sensory impact. It's observed that the temporal profile of the sweetener blend is shown to be closer to sucrose than any high potency sweetener alone, actually. So this synergy can be studied thanks to sensory experts, and then it's led to some model that R&D experts are building. And thanks to this know-how, those experts can propose a lower blend dosage than expected. So if you have a lower dosage than expected, actually it's induced a positive impact clearly on the cost of the blend. So let's show a case. So it's a beverage example with stevia sweeteners and bulk sweeteners. It could be actually fructose, for example. So there's a synergy which delivers higher than expected sweetness perception. And it can be forecasted thanks to expert and R&D models. In this figure, the bulk sweetener dosage is increased from 6 to 8 to 10%, while the stevia extract is maintained at 250 ppm. So you can observe that the total sweetness observed, which is measured in SEV, you see on the scale. So it's a sucrose equivalent value. So it's a sweetness intensity value, is higher than the expected one, which is in gray, which is the theoretical sum of the intensity values brought by on one part from stevia, but also on the other part by the bulk sweetener. So here is a real case illustration, illustrates the right strategy to choose the right ingredient for a chocolate milk drink. So this brief came from a big beverage manufacturers exporting in all GCC and Middle East. They were exploring actually 2 sugar reduction options and targets. So either 3 SEV or approximately 7 SEV. Various options of natural sweeteners alone were proposed, but also in combination. And finally, it was stevia extract combinations, which was selected because it was inducing a lower usage dosage, so a cheaper cost in use, but actually also a cleaner taste profile, achieving the sweetness target by the customers. So let's open another performing formulation approach working with Flavour. And it's always performing based on my flavorist experience, I can testify. So sometimes R&D teams are keen to manage ingredients separately, as we call sometimes formulating in silo. But actually the same as teamwork is always more efficient than individual work. Actually formulating with an holistic view challenging and adapting all needed ingredients is better performing. So for sugar reduction, if you look at bulking ingredients, sweeteners, and flavors all together, that will be for sure a successful formulation approach. Flavor properties are related to application matrix and also dosage. Flavors can improve the overall taste profile and increase also the flavor intensity. Flavors can help to rebalance the profile, especially when sugar is reduced, because it can really increase such note, but also decrease some others. So typically in red fruit flavors, just to give you an example, some fruity notes can be really impacted by the decrease of sugar. So an FMP could help you to regain this fruity part and identity of the profile. They can also help to enhance the warm notes. So typically in a chocolate type product, when sugar is reduced, you are losing a little bit the indulgence for the chocolate part. And it can turn into something more bitter, like cocoa notes and powdery. So rebalancing the flavor help to reach again or find back this indulgence from chocolate-rich taste. Flavor modifier can also improve the taste by minimizing off notes, such as bitterness or lingering. And actually, it could help you to avoid to pay an additional cost for masking agent. Stevia-based flavor are part of the flavor modifiers family. So they also help to achieve a great taste at a great cost. We observed that they improve the flavor profile of stevia sweeteners, and they create a more rounded and cleaner taste. So they're really welcome in formulation besides stevia sweeteners. How to use them? We recommend to use stevia-based flavors at an average dosage of 30 to 50 ppm, and in general, up to 100 ppm. But those dosages, we're just clear on that, are really depending on the regulation framework where the product will be sold. At such recommended dosage, actually, stevia-based FMP can induce a lower cost in use than other available FMP, and also sometimes compared to sugar. We will have an example after. On a regulatory point of view, FMP can be labeled as a flavor or even sometimes natural flavoring, depending on local regulation. They should comply with FEMA GRAS regulation. They can also comply with EU-related regulation text or any local flavor regulations. So here is a cost calculation exercise to show you the impact and how it helps to achieve a better cost in use. Excuse me. The cost impact of a sweetening system in a beverage application has been calculated based on the price of sucrose at $490 per metric ton. So for a full sugar recipe with 9% added sucrose, the sweetening system will cost approximately $44 per 1,000 liters of beverages. For a sugar-reduced recipe down to 7.5% of added sucrose, but with an addition of stevia-based flavor, actually the beverage manufacturers will only pay approximately below $41 per 1,000 liters. So it will lead to a 7.4% of cost saving, even if you have an addition of this stevia-based flavor. So such a savings will always be welcome, don't you think? Here is a real case example, but in completely different food applications. So that's an example in an instant vanilla flavored custard. Those can be used in cream custard, filled baklava, for example. Such fillings are expected to be quite sweet, and sugar also help for the texture, which is expected to be quite firm, actually. So the challenge is to formulate a recipe with a better nutritional value, a great taste, and also an accessible price. We prepared and requested our skill sensory panel to compare a full sugar recipe, so that's the blue line, which has been standardized at 0 as a pivot value in this illustration. And there's also a recipe with 30% sugar reduction in gray. And we tasted on top of this recipe a relevant natural flavor, which is in the orange line. So sensory panels generated and selected themselves the discriminative attributes. So you can observe that the sugar reduction clearly impacts the flavor profile on the buttery note, the vanilla note's intensity, and the overall roundness of the profile. So actually there was no compensation of the dry matter, no stabilizer. So the texture is clearly impacted, as you see on the sensory attributes, firmness and velvety sensation. So we understand here that an appropriate strategy is to improve the taste profile of sugar-reduced bakery filling. But actually, here you can also see that the flavor helps to gain a satisfactory recipe, but also with a significant cost reduction from the sugar. Another example is that our team was quite familiar with traditional sweet bites consumption, such as donut balls or the dates that are covered with chocolate. So they wanted to propose a healthy alternative using cocoa, using cereals, but still some fancy with the coconut flakes around. So it's really like the picture you can see.
Yes, did you join the Zoom, the webinar?
So several recipes were tested, and the thing is that they observed that the gap between the chocolate taste reference, which is sweet and indulgent, and the raw cocoa powder that they were using for this recipe, which can be quite bitter and astringent, was quite difficult to overwhelm. And actually it could be also difficult to accept for final consumers. So they tested performing natural flavor based on stevia within those bites, and they assessed sensory differences. So you observe that the addition of a natural flavor here increases the cocoa note, but also increases the roundness and the fullness of the perception, and also reduces the off notes of protein and cereals. So here, the message is that innovative food formulation is possible, including right ingredients and including sometimes the right natural flavor modifiers to propose consumers really something tasty, healthy, and also fancy with an affordable manufacturing cost, which will at the end induce an attractive price for final consumers. A last example, but quite striking also, that flavors in general, they modify flavor profile in food product, but they can also help to improve the sweetness taste and at the end, the recipe final cost. So here, again, it's a real case example in a lemon lime carbonated soft drinks. The initial full sugar recipe included 11% of sucrose, which is quite high, but quite expected for such lemonade. The beverage manufacturers, they developed a first performing 60% sugar reduced recipe, including 4.4, 1% of added sucrose, and also 240 ppm of stevia extract. So here, this first, let's say, reformulated recipe is the orange line. And however, the manufacturer, they wish to further reduce sugar because of an update of the sugar tax threshold. So they needed to target now only 3.3% of added sucrose. Several formulation options were tested. And here you can see the two last selection. One option in blue was, including 3.3% of added sucrose and also 280 ppm of the stevia extract. Another option in red with 3.3% of added sucrose again, but only with 210 ppm of stevia extract, plus a selected natural flavor. As you can observe, the second option allows to achieve the expected sweetness intensity, but also show a lower linger, lower off-notes, and also lower bitterness than the option one with stevia only. So here, the natural flavor really leads to performing overall liking. You see that the red line is close to the orange line initially. And it will really support to ensure the consumer taste preference. So I would say that in general, food industry is can really leverage multiple sweetening options to achieve a consumer preferred taste profile, an attractive, attractive nutritional values, but also quite accessible final market price for a product. And I let the stage for Diane for the final summary.
Thank you, Ariane. You can go to the next slide, please. So in summary, I think the key messages that we wanted to leave with you today are that consumers in the Middle East are becoming more health conscious and price sensitive. You know, they're spending cautiously and really paying attention to what they eat. But even with this mindset shift, the appropriate use of key food ingredients can help assist, to achieve the correct nutritional profiles and price position of these food products to reach consumers' expectations and also addressing the cost pressures of the sugar taxes. I hope with all the case studies now that Ariane has taken you through and all the insight that she shared, you're able to see how balancing sweetness such as stevia and natural flavors and leveraging their synergies can create fine-tuned dosages and therefore lower cost in use, achieving consumers' taste preference as well. And thank you everyone for your time this morning. We hope you've really managed to learn a lot.